Gather around, youngins, and hear the tale of how us older folk used to have to rent digital video discs if we wanted to watch classic wrestling pay-per-views. We didn't have a newfangled WWE Network on a streaming service. However, your precious WWE Network has some holes in it. Maybe it was better to have that physical media, because then the wrestling overlords couldn't decide what we could and could not see. I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling, and let's take a look at 7 more moments banned from the WWE Network. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and rock or dropper that notification bell. Number 1. We coming for you. There have been some legendary wrestling bloopers over the years. Owen Hart threatening to kick the leg out of Bret Hart's leg, Rey Mysterio's botched pull-up, Matt Hardy's disastrous ring entrance, but maybe the most famous one is this little oopsie doodle that took place back at Spring Stampede 1997. The main event for the evening was a 4-way bout between the Giant, Lex Luger, Booker T, and his brother Stevie Ray. And during a now legendary backstage interview, Booker T would slip up and say, "Hulk Hogan, we're coming for you, N-word without the hard R." From there, poor Booker buries his face in his hands as he realized what he just said about the most powerful man in the company. You have to wonder if this is where his "tell me he didn't just say that" catchphrase came from. However, if you'd like to relive this weird little footnote in wrestling history, you won't find it on the WWE Network. It has now been edited to the much less offensive "Hulk Hogan, we coming for you, sucker." Number 2. Having a ball. For as much as a weird a-hole that LaVar Ball appears to be, the guy was tailor-made for pro wrestling. During a 2017 episode of Miz TV, LaVar would get into it with Mr. Mizanin and proceed to cut this intense, hilarious promo. He refers to Lonzo Ball as his brand's greatest son. He says the hunt is on and you're the prey. He says there's only 2 dudes better than me, and I'm both of them. It was like the best and worst performance of all time. And quick aside, what does it say about this sport that we love that people who seem like genuine jerks can be so naturally gifted at it? Anyhow, before The Miz and LaVar would come to blows, voice of reason Dean Ambrose would make his way to the ring, and LaMelo Ball, who would go on to be drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, would get so excited by Dean Ambrose's appearance that he would shout into the microphone, "Beat that N-word without the hard R, ass." Now, in case we didn't hear him the first time, he decided to do it again. This incident caused the WWE to release a statement claiming the inappropriate language used by a guest during the Miz TV segment was not scripted nor reflects WWE's values. As you imagine, that part of the performance no longer exists on the WWE Network, and if it's cool with you, we're ready to move on from that word. Number 3. God Save the Queen. International live premium events are all the rage right now, and I gotta tell you, I'm here for them. That's what the kids say these days, right? I'm here for it. Puerto Rico, France, Scotland, all of these unique crowds are so friggin' fun. But there was a time when there were only international pay-per-views that were exclusive to their market. For example, the one-night-only pay-per-view that took place in 1997 and featured the controversial match where Shawn Michaels defeated Davey Boy Smith for the European title. This, of course, happened after Shawn threw a fit backstage so he could win the belt after Davey Boy had dedicated the match to his sister, who was dying of cancer. 90s Shawn Michaels, you were the best wrestler and just the worst human being. But yeah, nobody in the States saw that fiasco live because it was a UK exclusive event. We only saw the highlights on Raw, and as time would go on, there'd be more and more of these exclusive UK pay-per-views like Mayhem in Manchester, No Mercy, Insurrection, Rebellion. These events were basically fancy house shows where nothing particularly noteworthy happened storyline-wise, with the possible exception of the British Bulldog hitting Stephanie McMahon with the garbage can and giving her temporary amnesia. Wow, what a sentence that was. Anyhow, because these events were held in the United Kingdom, and because the United Kingdom has different rules about public nudity, for example, topless photos in their newspapers have only recently fallen out of favor, so WWE would take advantage of this newfound freedom during the Attitude Era to make their UK-only pay-per-views a little more spicy. One particular offering, the Capital Carnage show that took place in 1998, featured a mixed tag team match between Sable and Christian, squaring off against Jacqueline and Mark Merrow. The match was nothing to write home about except for the odd fact that Jacqueline was wearing a loose-fitting t-shirt instead of her usual wrestling gear. Well, that was to make it easier for Sable to rip her top off. And while the naughty footage would make it onto US VHS tapes, it has been censored on the WWE Network. Number 4. The Chris Benoit Tribute. A lot has been said and written about the horrible Chris Benoit incident over the years, and since that tragic weekend back in the summer of 2007, fans of Chris and the WWE as a whole have had to come to terms with what happened in that suburban Atlanta home. But Monday, June 25th, 2007 in particular was a special kind of horror for WWE fans. The night before, Chris Benoit had failed to show up for the Vengeance Night of Champions pay-per-view, but that wasn't terribly odd. There's a reason for the card subject to change notice that appears in every wrestling ad. Instead of Benoit squaring off against CM Punk, we got John Morrison stepping in and winning the vacant ECW title. It wasn't until the first reports came out that Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel had all been found dead that we learned that something horrible had happened. And as morbid as this sounds, wrestling fans of this era had somewhat grown used to professional wrestlers being found dead. Eddie Guerrero, Brian Pillman, Test, the list goes on and on from that era. But an entire family? This was tragic beyond our wildest dreams. In particular, I remember praying that it was a gas leak because no other alternative made sense. But none of us knew. And when WWE canceled the live show of that night's Monday Night Raw and instead ran several of Chris Benoit's best matches, nobody could blame them for not knowing how to handle it. They encouraged talents to give testimonials similar to the ones they had done for Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, but something seemed off. In particular, William Regal would state that John Bradshaw Layfield would question whether Benoit had anything to do with the deaths right before Regal went in to film his tribute. This left Regal in a state of shock and unable to comment on anything other than Benoit's in-ring prowess. Later that evening, it would be revealed that Chris Benoit was solely responsible for the incident and that there were no other suspects. Vince McMahon would appear on the next night's episode of ECW where he would state that the WWE wouldn't be mentioning Chris Benoit on their programming that night or any other night, so it should come as no surprise that the Chris Benoit tribute episode of Raw no longer exists on the WWE Network and has been replaced by a collection of best title matches from that year. Number 5. Mickie, You're So Fine. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's move on to something a little lighter. The Mickie James Trish Stratus Stalker angle was one of the highlights of the early days of the WWE Women's Division. Trish had become the standard bearer in the company when it came to women's wrestling, and Mickie James was able to match her in the ring, as well as become a very interesting foil with her obsessed fan character, with the implication that Mickie wanted to do more than be friends with the Canadian bombshell. Actually, maybe Mickie became too good at this job because by the time the duel landed in Chicago for the WrestleMania 22 match, they were ready to cheer Trish's crazed stalker on to victory. James would use all kinds of sexually charged implications to throw Stratus off of her game, but the one that stole the show was when Trish had Mickie set up for her trademark rope-assisted bulldog, the Stratusfaction, and Mickie would proceed to grab the champion in the old maple leaf. I'm not proud of that. But that wasn't enough to get the moment banned from the network. It was the moment afterwards that did it, where Mickie would proceed to lick her hand in a V-shaped formation. James expected Vince McMahon to love this little improv, and honestly, based on what we know about Vince McMahon, I'm kind of shocked he didn't, but apparently McMahon was furious because he knew it would have to be edited out. And edited out it was. That's another moment that no longer exists on the WWE Network. Number 6. Buff's Wrong Stuff. The practice known as blackface, that being a performer darkening their skin to imitate someone of a different race, is considered taboo because it perpetuates harmful racial prejudices, reflecting a history of systemic racism and oppression. Now, if you're one of those people who's going to go in the comment section and say it's not a big deal, hey, you're welcome to your opinion, but you can't deny that that act has been taboo for quite some time. It was taboo back when Roddy Piper did at WrestleMania 6, when he squared off against Bad News Brown, and that match has been removed from the WWE Network. It was taboo back when DX did it, when they parodied the Nation of Domination back in 1998, and that segment has been removed from the WWE Network. Weirdly, it was taboo back when the artist formerly known as Goldust did it, when he faced Flash Funk in 1999, but that video is still available. But WWE wasn't the only organization to try their hand at this. Buff Bagwell did his own blackface parody of an opponent when he went to the ring during an episode of WCW dressed as Ernest the Cat Miller. By his side was a racist portrayal of WCW manager Sonny Ono, although it is unclear who was under the mask. And after all of this, when Miller and Ono would come down to put Bagwell in his place, Bagwell would get the better of both of them. Yikes. Later it would be learned that Ono and Miller were completely against this angle, but they didn't feel like they could raise an objection about it backstage. And, as you'd guess by the title of this video, this segment is no longer available on the WWE Network, which is why all of the pictures we have of it are pretty crappy. My apologies. Well, in the end, the Cat would get his revenge on Bagwell at that year's Road Wild pay-per-view. Just kidding. Bagwell won that match too, but at least Ernest Miller wore the most confusing gloves ever, and in the end, this would be the last embarrassing thing Buff Bagwell would ever do. Number 7. Dragging your feet. Alright, racism, homicide, public nudity. Let's end this one with a fun one, shall we? Ultimo Dragon was the guy in Japan's FMW promotion, having legendary matches with Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Jushin Thunder Liger. He was one of the top names during the heyday of late 90s cruiserweight wrestling. I mean, look at that picture. The guy held the friggin' J Crown and the WCW cruiserweight title at the same time. But every wrestler dreams of having that WrestleMania moment. It may sound cliche, but even international wrestlers are fascinated by the showcase of the Immortals. So it must have been a bit of a bummer when the wrestling legend made his big entrance at Madison Square Garden and whoops! Fortunately, that little mishap was edited out of the show. However, it wouldn't get much better for old Ultimo there, as he was eliminated from the Cruiserweight Open in less than 3 minutes. Yikes, it is hard to imagine anyone having a worse WrestleMania. Well, maybe this guy. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other moments banned from the WWE Network? If so, please leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and hip toss that notification bell. Until next time, I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.